going to talk a little bit about where I'm from, and what Tuck has meant to me, and where I'm going. So, Exhibit A, one heart and one mind. My grandfather, Saul, immigrated to the United States between the world wars. His story was pretty typical. He already had a few family members living in New York. He could neither read nor write nor speak a word of English, and he had no real skills to speak of. He stopped going to school around the 3rd grade, and as best as anyone could tell, he never really did learn to read or write. But he did work, and he worked hard. My grandfather loved America because it was a place that rewarded hard work, and because it didn't matter who he was or where he came from. But if he worked hard, he could make his life and the lives of his wife and children a little bit better. When Pearl Harbor happened, my grandfather was among the thousands who volunteered the next day. He wasn't about to let the one country on earth that gave him an opportunity be threatened, and he took that obligation very seriously. My father wasn't born until after the war, one of the baby boomers, but my grandfather's experiences deeply informed the values with which he raised my father, and the values my father in turn passed along to me. Simply put, I was raised to work hard, take advantage of the opportunities available to me, and to give something back to the society that made those opportunities available in the first place. After my grandfather's experiences in World War II, I'm pretty sure he would have preferred I'd find a way to get back without going to a war zone myself, but I had my own ideas. During my senior year in college, I interned at Merrill Lynch and also happened to take a photo class. I loved both, but when I had to decide on a career path, I thought to myself, well, Merrill Lynch will always be there. Little did I know. But, now is the time to take a chance on photography. And as I found my way as a photographer, I fell in love with the idea of journalism and the critical role that journalism plays in the role and the health of our society and our democracy, and really any democracy. And as I thought about what kinds of topics or issues I wanted to cover, I thought that I had the mettle to handle conflict photography, and so I decided to test out that hypothesis. I worked on a few projects in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and shortly after the invasion of Iraq, I was asked to go to Tikrit to cover the troops searching for Saddam Hussein. After they found Saddam, I moved to Baghdad and continued to cover events from there. It was a pretty interesting time, to be sure, but I'll tell you about one little moment that has seared into my memory bank forever. My wife, Stephanie, who's a photojournalist and who is with us tonight, was in Baghdad with me at the time. We were riding in a car with an Iraqi driver and translator, and colleagues from the New York Times were riding with their driver in the car just ahead of us. We were sort of caravanning along. Through some contacts, we had been invited to Sadr City, a slum in Baghdad, to meet some of the commanders of the recently formed Mahdi Army, which is a Shiite insurgent group. It was about 100 degrees, it was mid-August, and the dust blew around from the unpaved side streets. The glare of the sun was brutal, and the smell of acrid, burning garbage was hanging in the air. The lead car, the New York Times car, moved through a makeshift checkpoint, and before our car could get through, pandemonium. Men started yelling, and 2 cars traveling at extremely high speed screeched to a halt, one on either side of our car. All 4 doors opened on both cars, and men in masks jumped out, pointing their automatic rifles at us. They continued yelling and gesturing in Arabic, and although my Arabic is not very good, it was pretty clear that these guys were not part of the welcoming committee. I was sitting in the front passenger seat, and I put my hands up on the ceiling of the car and turned around and told Stephanie to do the same. She was already doing it. I also told her not to get out of the car until Ayad, our driver, told us to. When I turned back to the front, after giving Stephanie those directions, the muzzle of a rifle was already poking through the passenger window about 2 inches from my right cheek. And I remember thinking 3 things. 1, don't panic. 2, Ayad really needs to fix the fabric hanging from the inside ceiling of the car. And 3, if somehow I survive this, and Stephanie doesn't, my mother-in-law is going to kill me. I'm not joking. This is really exactly what I thought, in that order. So, my mother-in-law's still not pleased about that. Thankfully, Ayad was able to talk things out, and it turns out that the hit squad had received some bad information, and by the end of the encounter, we were all friends. Well, I don't know, friends might be a little strong, but at least we weren't enemies any longer, and that was a distinct improvement.